I found a journal with my name on it, same handwriting, same initials, except I never wrote it. Every page predicted something I'd do the next day, until the entries turned dark. A man watching me. Footsteps outside my door. And the final page? It's dated tomorrow, with one chilling line: "You were never supposed to find this book." Which is why what happened 3 days ago, or rather, what began 3 days ago, has my brain twisted into knots I don't know if I'll ever untie. I wasn't supposed to be at the auction that day. I'd taken a wrong turn on my way to work, which never happens because I follow the same route every morning. But my GPS glitched, first time ever, and rerouted me down a street I didn't recognize. I should have turned back. Instead, curiosity got the better of me. That's when I saw it. A small crowd gathered around an old self-storage facility. A sign stuck to the rusted metal gate read, "Unit clearance auction today only." Something tugged at me, instinct, maybe, and I wandered in. The auctioneer pointed at me like he'd been expecting me. "You're just in time," he said. "I only bid on 1 unit. Don't ask me why, something about the number painted on the door, 123. It just felt right in the moment, like déjà vu wearing my favorite sweater. When the door lifted, dust burst into the sunlight in a cloud of tiny gold sparks. Most of the unit was junk, old furniture, taped cardboard boxes, a shattered mirror. But near the back, sitting on top of a trunk like it had been placed there intentionally, was a black leather-bound journal. The initials embossed on the cover made my stomach lurch. M.R. Hale. My name. Same capitalization. Same format. Even the imprint of the periods was the way I write it. I laughed at first, assuming it was some odd coincidence. But when I opened it, the laughter shriveled in my throat. The handwriting. It was mine. Same slope of the letters. Same way I cross my T slightly too far to the right. Same overlooped Y. But the strangest thing was that I don't keep journals. I never have. I flipped to the first page. "Tomorrow, you will wake to the sound of a distant siren and drop your mug in the kitchen. It will shatter, and you will curse louder than you mean to." I snorted. Cute, but obviously nonsense. Except the next morning, at precisely 6:42, a siren wailed in the distance, faint as a memory. My mug slipped from my hand, one I'd owned for years, the navy one with the chipped handle, and shattered across the tiles. I cursed. Louder than I meant to. I didn't tell anyone. I didn't sleep. By the next day, the journal had already predicted 3 more events. Small things. Ordinary things. Mundane enough that someone could argue they were easy guesses, if someone else had written them. But why would someone go to the trouble of forging my handwriting? How would they even know how? The third entry was what truly broke me: "You will take a wrong turn on your way to work. You will arrive at a storage facility. You will bid on unit 123. When you open it, you will find me." Me. I slammed the journal shut, pacing my apartment so fast my vision blurred. My heartbeat felt like it was pulsing in my teeth. I tried convincing myself it was a prank. A setup. A trick from someone who knew me well. But I live alone. I don't keep friends close, not anymore. And my family lives 2 states away. There was no one who could have planned this. No one who could have predicted that GPS glitch. No one who could have placed a journal in a locked unit months, or years, ago, waiting for me to stumble into that auction by accident. Unless it wasn't an accident. Unless I was always going to be there. And if that was true, then what else in the journal was going to happen? I didn't want to read more of it. But by that night, temptation gnawed at me until my resolve crumbled. The next entry wasn't mundane. It wasn't harmless. Tomorrow evening, you will see someone watching you from across the street. Do not approach him. Do not let him see that you noticed. If he knows you're aware, everything ends sooner than it should. I didn't sleep at all. When morning bled into afternoon and afternoon bled into evening, I stood at my window with curtains cracked just enough for a sliver of the world to slip through. I told myself I was stupid. Paranoid. Losing it. And then I saw him. A man in a dark coat. Standing perfectly still. Not scrolling his phone. Not talking to anyone. Just watching. Me. Or worse, waiting. I stepped back from the window so fast I nearly tripped. My lungs felt too small. The journal lay on my table, closed but heavier than any book its size should be. Page after page waited inside. Pages I was suddenly too afraid to read. I know, my life changed the moment I touched that journal. And something tells me this isn't the beginning. It's the middle. Or maybe even closer to the end. I didn't read the next entry right away. I couldn't. My hands were shaking too badly, and every time I glanced at the journal, it felt as though the leather cover pulsed beneath the light, as if it were breathing. The man across the street didn't move for hours. And I mean hours. I kept checking in timed intervals, telling myself that surely, he'd wander off or get into a car or shift his weight or do something a normal human would do. But he stood there like a shadow pretending to be a person. And worse, every time I checked, I felt this creeping pressure in my chest. Like his presence was a countdown, and every minute he stayed meant one less minute for me. By the time dusk painted the buildings purple, he finally moved, but not the way I expected. He didn't turn away. Didn't walk down the street. He turned his head. Slowly. Precisely. Not toward my window. But toward the journal on my table. That's when I closed the curtains so fast the fabric tore a bit at the top. I didn't sleep again. When morning crawled in, I forced myself to open the journal to the next page. Today, you will attempt to leave your apartment 3 times. The first attempt will fail. The second will be interrupted. The third, you must not follow through with the third. No explanation. No warning. Nothing. Just instructions. I threw on clothes and grabbed my keys. I didn't even bother with breakfast, I just needed out. Fresh air. Normalcy. Something that didn't smell like fear trapped in stale wallpaper. My first attempt ended before it began. When I opened the front door, something stopped me cold. Footprints. Not mine. Bare human footprints on the hallway carpet. Leading directly to my door. Stopping at it. Turning away. Fading into nothing. I slammed the door shut, heart battering my ribs like a fist. The journal hadn't lied. Which terrified me far more than the alternative. My second attempt happened an hour later when I worked up enough courage to try again. I cracked the door open like I expected to find a monster breathing on the other side, but instead, I found my elderly neighbor, Mrs. Cartwright, standing there with a tray of cookies and an expression that didn't belong on a living person. She wasn't blinking. She wasn't breathing, either. She held the tray out to me, arms rigid, eyes unfocused. I whispered her name. She didn't respond. Just kept holding the tray until a single cookie slid off and hit the floor with a soft, final-sounding thud. I shut the door. Locked it. Put a chair under the handle. The third attempt came without me noticing. I'd paced the living room for so long that time slipped sideways. At some point, my body moved on its own, autopilot kicking in, dragging me toward the door despite the dread hollowing my stomach. My hand was already on the knob when I remembered the journal's wording. The third, you must not follow through with the third. My breathing hitched. Then stopped. I pulled my hand back like the metal had burned me. I stumbled away from the door, falling to the floor, gasping. As if I'd been underwater. My apartment felt smaller by the second. And the journal, God, the journal seemed to hum, like it wanted me to read the next entry. So I did. I wish I hadn't. At sundown today, the man across the street will move again. This time, he will approach your building. He will reach your floor. He will stop outside your door. Do not open it. Then a second line beneath it had been added in darker ink, like an afterthought or a sudden warning: he will knock. He will know your name. My mouth went dry. Sundown was only hours away. I couldn't leave. I couldn't stay. My hands tremble now as I write this. I don't know if the journal was written by me, for me, or by something using my handwriting like a mask. All I know is that the sun is lowering, shadows stretching long across my apartment floor like they're reaching for me. The journal lies open. Waiting. And somewhere outside, on the street I no longer dare to look at, a man in a dark coat is beginning to move again. Sundown always feels like an ending. But that night, as the sky bled into deep violet and the first streetlights flickered awake, sundown felt like a countdown. I sat on the floor with the journal open in front of me. Its pages didn't flutter even when the draft from the window brushed across them, like the book was holding its breath. Or waiting for mine to run out. My building creaked. Old pipes shifted. Distant laughter from the street below drifted up, muffled by the glass. Every sound felt sharpened, amplified, because I knew what was coming. And then, at the exact moment the last ray of daylight vanished, footsteps. Slow. Measured. Coming up the stairs. I counted them in my head. 1 floor below. Then my floor. Then my hallway. Then they stopped outside my door. A faint shadow moved under the gap at the bottom, like someone shifting their weight. I pressed my back against the far wall, knees pulled tight to my chest, as though distance alone could protect me. A long silence. Then a knock. 3 taps, slow, deliberate, ancient in a way I can't explain, like something older than language was announcing itself. I squeezed my eyes shut. A second knock. Same cadence. Same intention. Then a soft voice through the wood. M.R. Hale. My name. I swallowed a sound I didn't recognize. Not fear, something deeper. Something like recognition. As if part of me remembered that voice even though I swear I'd never heard it. The journal's warning repeated in my head: do not open it. Do not let him see that you noticed. But he already knew. He knew everything. Silence returned, heavy and suffocating. I waited. Minutes passed like stones dragging across the floor of time. Then, as suddenly as he had knocked, the footsteps retreated. Down the hallway. Down the stairs. Out into the night. I didn't exhale until the world felt still again. When I finally crawled back to the journal, a gut-deep dread clawed through me. A new entry had appeared. Fresh ink. Still glistening. Now you know he's real. The room tilted. My vision tunneled. The handwriting was, again, mine. Hands shaking, I turned to the next page. And the next. And the next. Every one was blank. Except the last. Dated tomorrow. The date stared at me like an open grave. And beneath it, a single sentence written in a smaller, tighter version of my handwriting: you will read this line at dawn, and then you will understand why you were never supposed to find this book. My pulse roared in my ears. Dawn was only hours away. I didn't know what I was meant to understand, but dread pooled inside me like black water. I didn't sleep, again, but as the sky began to lighten, something strange happened. I felt calm. Not safe. Just accepting. As though a part of me, maybe the part that wrote these entries, had always known this moment was inevitable. At the exact second the sun broke over the horizon, a soft snap echoed from the journal. I watched as the back cover began to curl inward, the pages tightening like muscles contracting. The ink on the final line bled inward, shrinking, until the sentence disappeared entirely. Then, new words surfaced on the empty page, slowly, like writing rising from beneath water. Now you can choose. Choose what? I whispered the question aloud, voice cracking. The journal responded. Ink bled again, open the door. My breath caught. Or burn this book. I stared at the two sentences, my heartbeat hammering like a second pulse in my skull. Open the door. Or destroy the journal. Both felt like endings. Neither felt like safety. My fingers hovered over the page as the ink faded again, but a faint ghost of those two options remained, etched into the paper like scars. I don't know which one I chose. I don't think I ever will. Because the moment my hand made contact with the page, everything went white, soundless, weightless, timeless. And when the world snapped back into place, I was standing in an empty storage unit. Dust motes floated like gold sparks around me. A black leather-bound journal sat on top of a trunk. My initials on the cover. My handwriting inside. And the first entry read, "Tomorrow, you will wake to the sound of a distant siren and drop your mug in the kitchen."